This is the News 4 Rundown.
Welcome in, everybody. I'm Jim Adley. It's Tuesday, April 14th, and here's a look at some of the stories we're following for you tonight. Coming up, a controversial fountain with racist roots is the focus of a lawsuit against the National Park Service. Why a local man says the Park Service is complicit in glorifying white supremacy. Plus, it's Black Maternal Health Week. A new documentary highlights the story of 3 local women and their journey to motherhood. Our Jumi Olabanji shares their story. Then a local teacher is keeping Cursive alive, one student at a time. More on the after-school club she formed and why she says it's important for kids to learn. But we begin tonight with a heartbreaking scene in the district. A young boy is dead this evening and a second child gravely wounded in a shooting this afternoon. It happened on Kenilworth Avenue here near the Minnesota Avenue Metro Station. D.C. police tell us the boys were with a group of young people gathered near a food truck at a convenience store parking lot. 2 people walked up to them and opened fire. News 4's Jackie Benson has the late-breaking details.
Here's how police describe what happened. Take a look over there. You can see that's the 700 block of Kenilworth Avenue. They believe, according to the police chief, that preliminarily there were a group of young people walking on that sidewalk when 2 people, each with a gun, started running toward that group. There are numerous gunshots all over this parking lot, and it is very, very clear that the victims were running for their life. A short time ago, D.C. Police Chief Jeff Carroll talked about what happened here.
We know that the young people, there was a group of individuals, which these 2 young people were part of, that were out there. The information that we believe is possibly 2 shooters came up and then discharged at the group, striking our 2 young people.
Police believe there is a very strong possibility that someone driving by on 295 may have seen some or all of this, may have the information that they need to find these suspects. In Northeast Washington, Jackie Benson, News 4.
Jackie, thank you. Now to Virginia, where 1 week from today we'll know whether voters have cleared the way to redraw congressional districts in Democrats' favor. It's an effort Democrats say would counter President Trump's push for Republican states to create more GOP-friendly districts before this year's midterms. While we expect to see voters head to the polls next Tuesday, nearly 1 million votes have already been cast. These numbers already outpacing last year's gubernatorial election. It's an important election that lawmakers across the country will be keeping a close eye on. Joining us tonight to discuss the implications is political analyst and University of Mary Washington professor Stephen Farnsworth. Stephen, thanks for taking time with us. We appreciate it. What do these numbers tell us about who's turning out to vote so far? And what could that tell us about the fate of this constitutional amendment?
Right. So what we know from the polling is that the overall feelings about this amendment are pretty close to 50-50 right now. It's a significant decline compared to the huge margin that the governor had during her election last November. The early voting numbers suggest a lot of motivated people showing up early on. There are some early voting numbers that are very good in red counties, and there are some numbers that are very good in blue counties. So all indications are we are looking at a pretty close contest right now.
Well, as you mentioned, plenty of people casting their ballots despite flyers and mailers that seem designed to confuse them. What have you heard from advocates on both sides of the measure? Does the average voter really understand the question on the ballot?
Well, I think that what both sides are trying to do is put forward a simple message that brings forward an emotional response from a potential voter. Remember, this isn't a time people usually vote in Virginia, so you want to get people to turn out. On the pro side, the argument is all about President Trump. This is something that Democrats or advocates of this message are saying, is that this was a dynamic where Donald Trump started things with Texas, and Virginia can finish them by responding to Trump by voting in favor of it. On the no side, the argument is that Virginia just passed a constitutional amendment to take the line drawing power away from elected officials, and now people want to go back to that. That's a significant significant emotional reaction on both sides. That's the strategy going forward.
So is there any specific region to watch that could help Republicans and the efforts to defeat this amendment?
Well, the key areas to watch in Virginia politics are always the suburbs, particularly the outer ring suburbs. The further you get from the city of Richmond or Virginia Beach or from D.C., the more contestable that space is. So if you're thinking about, say, Loudoun County, for example, in our region, that's a key place to go to look at this. One of the things that the line drawing plan involves, which if estimates are in place, suggests that there's a very, very divided Northern Virginia element here. You have a whole series of congressional districts like strings of spaghetti stretching out from D.C. and sometimes hundreds of miles away from the Capitol.
Interesting. All right. Political analyst and University of Mary Washington professor Stephen Farnsworth, thanks for sharing your insights with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now to some of today's other top stories. The House is set to vote on legislation to strengthen aviation safety. It comes in the wake of the mid-air collision at Reagan National. The ALERT Act would require all aircraft flying around busy airports to have key locator systems to let pilots know where other aircraft are flying around them. We'll have an update at 11 tonight. The nonprofit American Rivers is out with its list of most endangered rivers in the country, and the Potomac is at the top. The Potomac was hit with that massive sewage spill earlier this year. At the same time, the eruption of data centers in Maryland and Virginia is raising concerns about water use because these facilities require large amounts of water for cooling. The report's authors said data centers may also pollute the river with forever chemicals. Another victory for residents fighting the proposed digital gateway data center development in western Prince William. The Board of Supervisors there voted unanimously not to appeal a ruling last month from the Virginia Court of Appeals. The court found the board violated state and local law by not properly advertising public hearings back in 2023. Opponents believe the decision not to appeal could kill the massive project near Manassas Battlefield Park. Next school year, cell phones will be banned every school day in Virginia. Governor Spanberger signed a bill that tightens restrictions into law. Now, the cell phone ban also applies to lunchtime when some schools currently allow phones, including Fairfax County High School. The new law includes exemptions for students with health concerns who benefit from monitoring with a cell phone. The Trump administration's efforts to remove historical landmarks that the president considers corrosive ideology has now reached Chevy Chase. For years, we've reported on the controversy surrounding the fountain at Chevy Chase Circle, dedicated to former Senator Francis Newlands. Newlands is widely described as a racist and anti-immigrant figure. Now, after residents and members of Congress were unsuccessful in removing his name from the monument, the National Park Service added a sign detailing his controversial views. But now that sign is gone. News 4's Mark Seagrave spoke with a local man who is now suing the Park Service over its removal.
The fountain has been a centerpiece of Chevy Chase Circle here at the D.C.-Maryland border for almost 100 years. Congress dedicated the fountain in honor of Senator Francis Newlands, who in addition to being a powerful lawmaker, was also a successful businessman responsible for developing the Chevy Chase neighborhood. The inscription in the fountain reads in part, "His statesmanship held true regard for the interests of all men."
And we clearly know that wasn't true. He was a white supremacist. He wanted to eliminate immigrants and people of color from the United States. So this is not an accurate representation of who this person was.
Several years ago, members of Congress and residents tried to have Newland's name removed because of his well-documented stance as a white supremacist. In 2022, a compromise was reached, and the National Park Service erected this interpretive panel detailing Newland's controversial beliefs. Then, sometime late last year, the sign disappeared, with no explanation. The removal came just months after President Trump issued this executive order, directing federal agencies to review what he called ideological indoctrination.
Folks in this neighborhood have known about this policy generally around the country at various national parks. but now it's come to our neighborhood, and this is information about our neighborhood. And I think that's why people are concerned about it and want answers. I think we deserve to have answers.
David Sobel lives just blocks from the circle and is part of a community group called D.C. Citizens. Sobel filed this lawsuit under the Freedom of Information Act against the National Park Service in an attempt to find out why the sign was removed and who authorized it.
It feels like book burning. History is being disappeared, and it's the history of this neighborhood, so it hits close to home. We all know that this assault on history is going on generally, but here we have a concrete example of how it's being applied, and it's happening right here in this neighborhood.
A spokesperson for the Park Service issued this statement. The Park Service regularly evaluates interpretive materials to make sure they remain accurate, relevant, and grounded in current scholarship. History is an ongoing process of learning, and as the new information comes to light, we update how stories are presented so they better reflect the complexity and full context of the past. When a wayside or exhibit is removed or covered, it typically means the material is under review. While the official interpretive sign is gone, if you walk just 2 blocks down Connecticut Avenue, you'll find a community display in the CVS store window that tells of Newland's role in segregation. In Chevy Chase, Mark Seagraves, News 4.
40 years later, and a congressional staffer's murder remains unsolved. We'll have that story coming up. But to let you know, we reached out to Maryland Senator Van Hollen and D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, both supporters of the Newlands Memorial Removal Act. Van Hollen told News 4 the Trump administration is once again choosing to whitewash history and says the White House is afraid of the truth. Norton, for her part, wrote, quote, "There is no redeeming value in preserving an honorific to an avowed and unrepentant racist. Newlands belongs in the dustbins of history." Now we're going to have the latest 4 decades later after the staffer's murder remains unsolved on Capitol Hill. We're hearing from her family as their push for answers continues. Plus,
it was a warm day across our area. No records just yet, although Dallas came 1 degree shy of a record at 86. 87 today, D.C. 89, Warrenton 89 in Clinton. And tomorrow we step into the 90s, and I think we have multiple records broken across the area. I'll update you on just how hot things get and how long it stays that way. We'll see you next with the 10-day forecast.
this week marks 40 years since someone killed Sally Heat. It's a chilling mystery that's gone unsolved for decades. She was working as the press secretary for then Senator Daniel Evans from Washington State. Heat was found stabbed to death in the living room of her Capitol Hill apartment back in 1986. The discovery was made after she didn't show up for work. As News 4's Paul Wagner reports, there have been some leads in the case over the years, but still no arrest.
Heather Means was 15 years old and living in Ohio when she learned the awful news about her godmother and aunt.
You know, I just met her. I was just with her, and I couldn't really believe it. It felt really surreal to me.
Heather remembers the sadness at the funeral and standing at Sally's grave.
Just having this thought in my head that just kept going around and around, which was, who did this to her? Was it somebody that she knew? Was she waiting for help that didn't come? That's the thing that has really haunted me.
And so a few years ago, Heather designed a website to bring attention to the case. Who Killed Sally Heat is filled with photos and details and a number of news articles published at the time. So you were told by the police that they know that the killer left out a back door of this apartment building?
Right, yes.
How do they know that?
Because they found blood on the wall by the back entrance. According to the police, there was blood on the wall that...
We can see into the hallway here,
right.
And I don't know what that leads to. Todd Williams is a cold case detective with the D.C. Police Department. He's been working on Sally's case for a few years now.
Sally had been stabbed several times. She was found on the floor of the living room. There was a lot of blood, as you would imagine.
Based on the evidence, police believe Sally was killed the night before her body was found and may have encountered the killer at the mailbox just inside the building's front door. On the morning of April 17, 1986, when Sally Heat didn't show up for work, her stepbrother and a co-worker came to her apartment building here, and when they got inside the front door, They found the door to her mailbox open.
She was found nude, and there's clearly a sexual component to the crime because of the nature of how she was found.
Detective Williams says the only thing taken from the apartment was Sally's raincoat, which the killer may have used to cover the blood that would have undoubtedly been on his clothing.
There was blood evidence in the hallway, and then there was blood evidence at the back door that led out to 6th Street.
Neighbors told detectives they heard screams that night but did not call the police. Detective Williams says so far they have not been able to obtain a DNA profile in the case, but the testing goes on.
The information that could help this investigation at this point is the person that did this may have told somebody, and at the time the person who heard the information may not have thought it meant anything, or may not have, believed it.
In the days after Sally's death, Heather Means found this postcard in the mail. It was sent to her by Sally, who was raving about a wonderful cruise she had just taken.
The person who, if they're still alive, who killed Sally, they've had 40 years of family and friends and life experiences, and Sally got stabbed to death in her own apartment. And they took her away from all the people who loved her. And that's the thing that it just goes around and around in my head sometimes.
Detective Williams and Heather Means both say they believe this case can still be solved all these years later. In the district, Paul Wagner, News 4.
All right, Doug joins us now. Hot today, but not too hot. Tomorrow, though, maybe another story.
Yeah, I think tomorrow we're setting some records. No records across the area today, but tomorrow those records are all in the upper 80s, and I think everybody hits the low 90s tomorrow. Out there right now, you can see the clouds off toward the north. Now, we're actually tracking some showers and thunderstorms out there, so it felt a little bit like summer today, and it looks like summer with some scattered showers and storms across the area. Those afternoon showers and storms moving on through the area. Temperature-wise, right now, we're at 84 degrees. Dew point down into 56-degree range, but it's been close to 60 at times, so you may have felt a little tinge of humidity out there. A little bit of wind at the south at 11 miles per hour. Area-wide temperature still in the 7 o'clock hour. 85 Manassas, 86 Culpeper, 84 Patuxent River, 72 in Frederick. Now, why is Frederick so much cooler? Well, there's been some shower activity up that way. We've seen a few showers. Some of them have been some fairly good downpours. They've been rumbling through our northern zones here. Not much around the metro. We've seen a couple of sprinkles here, but in towards Frederick County, Howard County, northern Montgomery County, and then over towards Baltimore. This is where we have seen the showers, and they continue to work their way up through the northern parts of our viewing area. So what does that mean for us? Well, we desperately need the rain. We're still in a drought, and we're not going to get a whole lot out of this. So if you do get some rain, well, count yourself lucky. We're also tracking an area of storminess back to the west, a severe line of storms working its way through western Pennsylvania. This should begin to weaken as it moves our direction, but can't rule it out into parts of our area, western Maryland, maybe the panhandle of West Virginia. You may see a little bit more than this, or a little bit more of this as we make our way through the overnight hours. So speaking of that, by around 9 o'clock, maybe a few showers lingering, but once again, most of us staying on the dry side. Tomorrow morning, starting off on a very warm note, most of us in the low 60s out there at 7 a.m. So the kids at the bus stop, walking to school, yeah, no jackets required tomorrow, and you won't need them at all in the afternoon. Look at these numbers. Most of us into the low 90s. The only exception might be areas along the water, but a very warm day. And we see the same thing on Thursday. Both days I'm going 92 degrees. Both days would be records. Thursday would tie the record at 92. 85 on Friday. An isolated shower can't be ruled out. 88 degrees on Saturday. And then much cooler weather moves in on Sunday. Strong cold front comes our way. Chance of showers. Not a ton of rain, but at least a little bit of rain there. And then much cooler as we head towards early next week. But feeling more like spring, where this week has felt a whole lot more like summer.
Oh, sure has felt that way, huh? All right, this week we are recognizing Black Maternal Health Week. In our country, Black expectant mothers are more than 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. And the majority of those deaths are preventable with proper care. Today, Jumi Olabanji is highlighting the story of 3 local women and their journeys to motherhood in the documentary, Listen to Me.
Do everything right, you have the resources, you have the knowledge, but it still is not enough to save you. Then what's the answer?
So Listen to Me is a documentary about, as you said, 3 Black women's journey to motherhood. And we are all actually maternal health advocates, experts, clinicians in the film. The third woman, Dr. Shalon Irving, we tragically lost due to postpartum maternal health death. And so she's not here with us. But these stories were really going beyond the data. So we know the data, we know the stories in journal articles, and we wanted to really bring them to life. Our stories are personal, they're complex, you know, they are intergenerational, and we wanted to bring light to how complicated this issue really is in the United States.
I just feel like there wasn't a lot of discussion about infertility. And I know I experienced my own shame and also feeling like there wasn't any representation, anybody in the offices, the reproductive endocrinologists that looked like me and maybe had some of the challenges. So I wanted to share to hopefully, you know, let folks know, like, sometimes we need help.
I mean, you both are doctors, and this is happening, right? I mean, this shows that this you know, Black maternal health epidemic can happen to anyone. Doesn't even matter your socioeconomic background.
Yes, I feel like in this documentary, what we're doing is we're exposing that it's not because of individual behaviors. It's not because of anything we're doing wrong, anything we're eating, how we're living. We have Ebony and I have the right zip codes. We have the right health insurance. We have the right education. And we're showing across the spectrum how we're affected in this country, and it shouldn't be. It's one of the most egregious problems that we have in the United States, where for all women in the developed country, this is one of the most dangerous places to have a child.
Can you talk to me, Ebony and Kanika, about what you want mothers to be, just all women, to walk away with after watching this film?
I want them to watch and hopefully understand that they're not alone. I want them to also understand that, especially with like infertility, that your body isn't broken, and that, you know, there's plenty of us out there who are struggling and are gonna make it.
I am really hoping folks walk away with understanding how the data plays out, understanding that this problem doesn't begin with pregnancy. It begins long before pregnancy even happens. It's even to some extent intergenerational, and understanding that they have choices and options that are available to us.
Listen to Me has won several film festival awards. You can find a link to the documentary's website at NBC4Washington.com and, of course, on our social media. Stick around. The News 4 Rundown will be right back. Finally tonight, a local teacher made a special appearance on the Kelly Clarkson Show today. Sharice Kennerson heads a Cursive club at Holmes Middle School in Fairfax County. Kennerson says the idea came after she realized some students didn't understand her cursive writing. They were interested, so she decided to turn it into a fun after-school program.
Yeah, a lot of schools that I've been at, they have kind of fallen out of that. I'm actually licensed in Texas, North Carolina, and Virginia, past military family. And they did kind of take it out the curriculum, I think because of the technology boom. But I still write in cursive because I learned when I was in the 3rd grade. It made me feel fancy, like an adult. So I truly enjoy it, but it has lots of other benefits. Your brain's on a 10 when it's writing in cursive, a 5 when you're in print, and a 0 or 1 when you're texting or typing.
Wow, who knew that? Kelly and her team love the idea so much, she announced a $5,000 donation to the Holmes Middle School Cursive Club. Congrats to Ms. Kennerson and the entire club. That's going to do it for us on the News 4 Rundown for this Tuesday night. Be sure to join us right back here for News 4 at 11. For now, I'm Jim Handley. Have a great night, everybody.